I mean, your life was pretty good while your dad was in prison. You had a much better situation.
I mean, I love my dad more than anybody in this world, and I'd rather be with him than anybody in this world.
The teenager you just saw being interrogated is Joshua Young, who was 15 years old at the time of his interrogation. Joshua Young himself was born to Angelina Young and Josh Gauker. He shared his father's first name and was given his mother's maiden name. Gauker was always in and out of jail, and little Joshua lived with his mother. However, sadly, Miss Young died on Easter Sunday 2010, and Joshua was put in foster care as Gauker was behind bars at the time.
So you understand my concern with the story there, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I would think that your first story that you told Detective Maroney at the school is probably the true version of the events, because Cassie says she doesn't remember if you stayed there or not that night.
John does,
No, John doesn't either.
because he was passed out on the couch.
I'm just telling you. So we need to work through what the truth really is, okay? Like I say, you're leaving here when you're done talking to me, or you can walk out right now. But so we kind of need to get the truth, and there's a lot of other things I want to talk to you about. So let's kind of work through this part at first. Tell me the truth about that night.
We were on the back porch. It was me, him, Dad and Amanda stayed on that porch the whole night, evidently, because we were on the back porch and he told me he was going to take a shower and calm down for the night. So I went to Cassie's. I planned on, I didn't know if I was going to sleep down there or sleep down at Amanda's, but I got comfortable down at Cassie's. Ended up watching a movie and falling asleep down there.
So why would you?
I guess the first day, it was a bad day.
Yeah, and
You
I
can
understand that.
that.
I can understand, but let me tell you this. I had a family member murdered before, and when I told the police back when I was like 11, I told them the truth the first time. I didn't have to tell them something that I know I was upset and I was scared and I was angry and I was all those things that everybody went through. But I still told the police when they asked me a question, I would tell them what happened. They didn't have to come back to me a week later or 2 weeks later or a month later, because what I told them was the truth. So when you start telling a couple different stories, it makes me wonder about your credibility or your truthfulness. And at this point, I believe the story you told her at the school that day is the true story, because even Amanda said you were there
That night?
that night when he was taking a shower.
No.
After Gauker was released, who we'll be referring to as Josh in the video, he started living with his son Joshua and his cousin Cassie. Josh also had a girlfriend named Amanda with a son named Trey Zwicker. Joshua, Josh, Amanda, and Trey used to live together, and though Joshua was a teenager involved in drugs, Trey was a freshman at Seneca High School.
Your stories aren't even close. To, I wasn't there. I was down at Cassie's watching TV, getting comfortable. To, I was there. I saw him take a shower. We were going to go to bed. I saw him put his clothes back on, including his shoes.
But I got that story because my dad and Amanda told me that night he walked out the back door fully dressed head to toe and then walked back in and shut the door.
And of course, I think that's easy to say now. But when she clarified with you a couple of different times, so you saw him put his clothes back on? Yes. What kind of shoes did he put on? Some kind of black shoes.
So,
It's not like my dad told me, or it's not like Amanda told me,
I mean, that's
or
the
her
only
from the
kind of shoes he
neighborhood,
had,
or
so that had to be the shoes he put back on.
Okay, but you see what I'm saying? That your story doesn't make any sense. And I don't want you to get jammed up in this murder case at all.
Had
Okay.
nothing to do with it.
And so that's kind of where we need to work through right now before we go on to some other things. I think you were in the house that night.
I was not.
I think you saw him take a shower. I think you saw him put his clothes back on, and I think him and your dad went back down to where this happened at.
No, sir.
On May 11, 2011, Trey Zwicker was found beaten to death in a creek bed behind Liberty High School on East Indian Trail in Louisville, not far from Gauker's home. Joshua Young was arrested in 2011 and charged with his stepbrother's murder. As their personalities were completely different, the police saw a bit of rivalry between them, thus claiming that Joshua killed his stepbrother. Here, he is being pressured by the investigator to confess to the murder.
Let me just show you my phone here real quick. See on my phone? A lot of people have these nowadays. It's got a voice recorder on it. And we can record, and I can talk and say, Chop, hello, how are you doing, Josh Young, and I can stop it, and I can save it, and then I can play it. I can talk and say, Chop, hello, how are you doing, Josh Young. See how that works? And you would never know if that was on my, you'd never know if this was sitting right here, would you? That I was recording our conversation. You would have no idea. So you have talked to a few people that were smart enough to do something similar to this, either with their phone or with a little digital recorder or something like that. And I know you've talked to a few people.
Just you and
I don't mean police-wise, I mean friends. Some of your friends you've talked to. And you've told your friends a few things, a little more in detail about maybe what happened to Trey. Yeah?
like what?
And I've got a text message from some of your friends that they were sending to their other friends, telling them what you had told them.
Well, I've told you the truth.
What have you told Connor?
That he was killed. Really haven't told her anything.
Who's some of your other close friends?
After that incident, nobody was really able to come back around.
Okay, but just because they don't come around after the murder? I mean, there's still people you knew or were acquaintances with, or?
I was pretty cool with everybody on the street. Everybody was always down there. Cassie's, Amanda's.
What other female friends do you have or you associate with?
Not really any.
Who's Connor been arguing with on Facebook?
Sarah.
Have you talked to Sarah?
Not recently, no.
I mean, before the murder, a couple days after the murder?
Maybe.
Think about what I just showed you on my phone or what we talked about. And I want you to tell me the truth about what you and Sarah may have talked about.
I can't remember if I've talked to Sarah or not after. I know I've talked to her before,
Right.
but
And what were y'all's conversations about Trey?
none. She didn't know anything about Trey that I knew of.
She knew Trey.
She did? I didn't know that. She never came around.
What other girls do you have that were friends of yours?
Not really any. Sarah's not even a friend. I don't talk to her anymore because Connor and her don't get along, so I haven't talked to her at all.
So why would there be other friends out there that have came to me, and I've interviewed more people in this case than probably any murder case that I've interviewed anybody on, even the Lyman Kano case.
I don't know if
Why would some of your friends, male or female, come to me and say that you and your dad were talking about how you all would kill people before Trey was murdered, and that Trey was murdered in a similar fashion how you described how you and your dad would do it?
I have no idea.
Apart from Joshua, his father, Josh Gauker, was also a suspect in the case, and just after the death of Trey, both the father and son left Kentucky as they held a woman at gunpoint and forced her to drive to Alabama. They were soon caught, and Joshua was sent to Kentucky to face charges, whereas a case of kidnapping was made up against Josh but was later dropped due to his past sexual relations with the woman.
Grudges? I don't know. I get along with everybody.
So if I had a grudge with,
So nobody would really have a reason to lie.
like to say that CPS worker Bridget, say I had a grudge with her.
Well, I would Bridget did.
Yeah, it's just one, So if I had a grudge with her for any reason, some kind of work issue, you think I would go around saying,
I mean, that'd be a horrible thing. I know
Bridget
what you're
told
saying.
me that her and her mom were going to talk about how they were going to kill somebody.
I know what you're
And then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a horrible
That's-
thing. Maybe for credit.
It'd be
Maybe
something
to be-
different on a grudge. You could be like,
Maybe to be noticed. I don't know.
were you talking about stuff like that maybe to be noticed?
I never once talked about killing anybody, and I never heard my dad talking about killing anybody. And my dad liked Trey, and so did I.
Okay, let's talk about the ride down. Why did y'all go to Alabama? What was the reason to pick Alabama?
We were just passing through Alabama.
What made you all even leave? The girl that was with you, who's she?
It's just a friend.
Had you met her before?
Huh?
Had you met her before?
Yeah, no.
I mean, because obviously your dad is on parole, so he's not allowed to even leave this county. And I know a few weeks ago y'all went to Michigan, and then y'all went to Alabama. So what was the conversation in the car going down to Alabama, y'all driving in the car, what's some of the conversation y'all had?
Can't even remember.
And I'm specifically talking about just the incident with Trey.
I don't even know if we talked to Trey about Trey on the way to Alabama.
And you all talked about it because she did the same thing. She knew that your dad might be a little. She's not sure if she could trust him all the way, so she recorded some of y'all's conversations.
I don't believe that because we didn't talk about Trey on the way to Alabama.
So why would I hear on the recording that you all were talking about, you specifically talking about, you were kicking Trey in the head?
I don't know. That didn't happen. I never have said that in my life.
The investigating officer tried to pressure Joshua into admitting the crime, but he remained steadfast in his claims that he did not have any idea about the incident. The officer also kept on playing bluffs that he had multiple pieces of evidence against him, when in reality he had nothing, and Joshua never fell into his bluffs.
Okay, so your friends that say you are talking about killing people a couple weeks before the murder and Trey dies similarly, and this girl driving to Alabama, she's lying, so everybody's just lying.
That's not true at all.
So they're all just liars.
I don't know what they are. They aren't telling the truth, so it must make them liars.
Have you had chance to think about, obviously, I mean, your life was pretty good while your dad was in prison, you got to admit. You had a much better situation.
I mean, I love my dad more than anybody in this world, and I'd rather be with him than anybody in this world. So my life was much better with my dad.
So your life was better getting arrested in Alabama?
Being with my dad, it's all worth it.
Really? So you would rather not be in a secure home, having a secure school,
If I'm with my dad,
having a decent family, having Trey as your friend, now he gets out of jail, or he gets out of prison and Amanda quits her job, he goes to jail, Trey gets murdered, I mean, all that stuff's better? That's better to you?
of course not. I said being with my dad is better than being anywhere else.
But you've been with your dad for, he's been out for 7 months, something like that?
It's about that.
And you've already been arrested in Alabama for a gun charge? That's better? I'm confused by that statement.
I had nothing to do with it.
Yes, well, obviously you did because they at least you didn't let the charges get dismissed.
So that was just accidental arrest. They had no reason to arrest me.
Well, there was a gun in the room and nobody had a permit to have it, so that's their city ordinance, so it's not an accidental arrest. I mean,
Well, I mean, they could. I don't mess with my guns. I'm 15. Do I look like having a gun?
well, and you don't think I've arrested 15-year-olds for carrying guns before?
I'm sure you have.
Okay, so then,
I mean,
but I mean that just doesn't make sense. But
it does to me.
so, I mean, there's just a lot of inconsistencies in your story, and that's what I'm concerned about. Either
I
it's
have
how
not-
you saw him or when you didn't see him, or you talk about killing people and when you didn't talk about killing people, you talk
Never
about
talked about
kicking
killing
him in the
anybody.
head, and then you didn't talk about kicking him. I mean, it just seems
Kicking
like
him in the head?
everybody's, yeah, I just said that about 5 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
that's.
It seems like everybody's telling me stuff, and to you, everything's like, no, nothing happened, they're liars, I don't know what you're talking about.
I've never said anything like that. Neither is my dad or anybody.
However, another twist comes in the case when there's probable cause for Josh to kill his stepson. In December 2010, Zwicker, Trey's mother, got pregnant with Josh's baby. This happy scene soon turned sad when Josh was caught cheating on her, as he accidentally dialed her number while having sex with his cousin. After Zwicker heard the call, she was agitated and decided to end all ties with Josh, and even ended up aborting the baby. Perhaps he was taking revenge for his baby. Let's find out.
So what's the deal with that lady down there?
I don't want to talk. I ain't in that. I don't feel comfortable talking about that. I had nothing to do with anything about that, so I don't feel the need to talk about it.
Okay, going back to the forensic stuff. Some people said that your dad, and I have phone records to verify it, said that your dad talked to somebody, and I'm not gonna tell you who, at about 9:37 on that Tuesday night y'all had the cookout. And he said that he was with you, and your dad said that he was with Trey, and y'all were all smoking weed. And I'm not worried about it if you are, because I ain't the police, so I don't care about that. I'm just, you have to tell you what the story is so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this was at 9:37. And the toxicology results for Trey after the autopsy was he had in his urine, but not in his blood. which means it was in the system just quickly enough to get in his urine
If he
before he was killed.
No, he smokes weed just as much as anybody else. If he has weed in his system, it's in his blood.
It's not in his blood. I'm telling you,
It's
it's not
an
in his blood.
everyday thing.
It's in his urine only. It did not show up in his blood.
Well, he was at his dad's previously before that on the ground.
So if your dad is saying he's with you and Trey smoking
I
at
don't believe
9:37.
he said that.
Okay, well he did at 9:37, and I plus have phone records to verify the person's story that told me this. And so at 9:37, he's saying he's with you and Trey smoking, and then Trey doesn't have enough in his system to get into his blood, which means he was murdered pretty fast after that phone call.
I was at Cassie's.
No, you weren't at Cassie's.
I was.
No.
With John. John was on the couch. He was waking up, nodding back off.
You may have been there at some point, but you weren't there. You were there maybe after Josh took a shower, or Trey took a shower, and Trey got dressed, and Trey tried to leave, and Trey put his shoes back on. Because I know you saw all that. Okay, so if your story is you didn't see him take a shower, you all weren't getting ready to go to bed, you didn't see him put his shoes back on or his clothes back on, then how can I believe anything else you tell me during this whole entire interview? Because you clearly said it.
You
I
don't
mean, I
have
can play
to.
it again if you want to hear it. I
heard
can
everything
play it
on-
again.
I heard everything on the CD.
I mean, I can
You,
play it again.
you don't have to trust me. I mean, you don't know me.
I mean, if you're lying about that, then how do I know you're telling me the truth about anything else?
That's just a chance you have to take. There ain't really any way.
The investigating officers keep on trying to push Joshua into admitting that he was there at the scene when Trey left the house, but he keeps on categorically denying everything as he claims that he saw nothing that day.
Have you talked to Amanda or seen Amanda?
Mm-mm.
And then I guess Connor came and visited you yesterday or day before or something.
Yesterday, day before.
How did that go? What was that conversation about?
Nothing about Trey or anything that's going on legal-wise. Me, her, and her mom played a board game. Just hung out for a little bit. We didn't get the full visit because her grandma brought her down and her grandma wasn't on the list. She couldn't stay alone, so she had to, I guess, go back home and get her mom to bring her. So it was a short visit, period.
I mean, but you see how all the information I'm getting from a lot of different people, from phone records, from autopsy reports.
I can tell you, I've never once talked about killing anybody, kicking Trey in the head. Me, Trey, and my dad were not smoking at 9:37. That's all false.
I mean, you see why I would have to come back and talk to you about that.
I would,
Because
I would
everybody's
talk to
coming to-
somebody about that. If I had your job, I'd be doing the same thing, and I understand why you're doing it, but I had nothing to do with it, and I'm pretty sure my dad doesn't either. My dad was with Amanda. She stated that the whole night. Why would she try to change it? Is she trying to change that now?
Well, I'm not going to tell you who's changing what or who's talking about what. That's part of the investigation. So you had time to think about what might have happened down there that night?
I mean, it's just blank in my head. Everybody's thought about it. I don't know what could have possibly happened.
My feeling is you know more than what you're telling me.
That's not true.
Even at this young age, Joshua was clear that anything could be held up in court against him, and he refused to speak about anything related to the case, and kept on denying everything the officer placed against him.
Did you know your dad tried to call me twice yesterday?
Mm-mm.
And then he called me when y'all got locked up to let me know y'all got locked up?
I didn't know anything, but I hadn't talked to my dad since we got locked up, so no.
I mean, you want to find the person responsible for this, right?
Well, of course. What kind of question is that? Yeah, I do. As
Well, that's
much
the question I'm
as
asking. That's the kind
As
of
much
question.
of anybody else. Yes.
So your honesty is important in this investigation.
I understand that, and I've told you I have nothing to do with it. Neither does my dad. That's why are you harassing us and the close family instead of really trying to figure out?
Things soon heated up in the room when investigation officers couldn't get anything out of the 15-year-old. He started shouting at them, explaining to them how hard the case had been for him.
So you know what I've done in my investigation.
I mean, you've been harassing my dad, so has everybody else.
How have I harassed your dad? Your
Well,
dad
you
calls
can't-
me like 20 times a day.
I mean,
So,
constantly.
oh, wait. You're gonna sit there with your hat cocked sideways, with your red that your dad likes to wear and all that stuff, and your red shorts
my
hanging down,
favorite
your underwear
color.
sticking out. But then you're gonna tell me things that you have no idea about.
Well, I just don't.
I have not harassed your dad.
I feel
Your
like
dad
it's-
called me 10 times a day. Your dad's called me twice since he's been locked up in Alabama. He's called me twice, so I'm harassing your dad. So you're just gonna, you can sit there and say stuff that you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I feel
Who
like
else have I
it's-
interviewed in this case?
I have no idea.
So then you don't know who else I've
Me and my
interviewed in this
dad.
case. You don't know who I've interviewed in this case.
I'm talking about me and my father.
Right, but you said I need to be doing stuff to find out who really did it. But you don't know what I
Instead
did.
of interviewing
So
me,
to sit there and just run your
Dad,
mouth is pretty
Amanda.
inappropriate.
well, I'm sorry for
You
being
should be sorry.
inappropriate, but I didn't mean it that way. I just meant.
Well, how do you mean it when I say you
I
say
think
I'm
it's an
harassing you?
inconvenience that you're interviewing me right now, and I don't know anything.
Okay, but you just said 10 minutes ago that if you had my job, you would ask you the same questions.
Yeah, but not keep on going and going and saying that you think I know more than I'm saying, which I don't. I think that's harassment. That's calling me a liar. And
Well,
it's,
I think I can play it again if you want to hear your statement.
I told you I've.
Which to me you're a liar.
Well, I'm sorry if you think that, sir.
I mean, your own word. It's your own words. You can't take back your own words. Your own words where you saw him take a. You knew he was taking a shower. You all were going to go to
You told me
bed.
he's
You
taking a
never
shower.
once told Detective Roney that you were going to go down and stay at Cassie's house. You told her you all were preparing to go to bed, and that he took a shower. You watched him put his clothes back on. You watched him put his shoes back on. Those are your own words, not my words, not her words. You can't take back your words. Those are on tape.
Yeah. But I've told you the story.
And that's, I believe, what it is. It's a story.
It's the truth.
Okay, so then it must be the truth that you saw him put his clothes back on and take a shower.
Now I knew he put his clothes back on and his shoes back on, and they must have been the black shoes because the only shoes he wore.
Well, that's not what you told her.
Well,
It wasn't because you heard.
I was in shock that day. I was. Along with everybody else.
Well, I mean, I hope you're telling me the truth because I mean, obviously, some of the things I know you're not telling me the truth on. For things I've heard with my own ears on the recordings and things I've heard you say with your own words.
Yeah.
I know it's not the truth. And that's why I'm giving you this last opportunity to tell me the truth.
I've told you the truth. And I would like to go now. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable with this whole thing.
Can you sit here long enough for me to get your worker to come back up here?
Yeah.
I'll have him walk up and that way he can walk up with you.
However, soon after this was over, another huge twist came in the case. Josh Gowker confessed to killing Trey. He told the jury that it was the right thing to do after Amanda had killed her baby. Josh was sentenced to life in prison after his confession in July 2013. Now, was he being honest or just saving his son? Let's find out.
If you're telling the truth, it shouldn't be too hard
I'm
for
a
you.
yeah, but goddamn, I've lied this whole time, except for since arraignment. Since arraignment court, I've told you I've done it. I admitted everything I've done. I've been sentenced for it, life in prison. Yet here I am, going over this same story.
So when Trey came downstairs, which is what you told the judge when you pled guilty, he asked you for a cigarette. Is that what you told him?
Yeah, he did.
And that he pulled your lighter out of his pocket.
Yeah,
And that made you mad,
I didn't say nothing. I didn't want to argue.
but it upset you.
Yeah,
And then you went into the kitchen to get the plate of food that Amanda had put up for you. Right?
yep,
And that you found out that he had eaten it.
yeah,
So you got mad. And you told the judge that you decided to scare him. Right?
yep.
And you offered Trey a blunt. Right?
I didn't offer him shit. I just smoked with him. Asked me if he wanted to smoke.
You asked him if he wanted to smoke, right? And then ultimately you went down to the spot, right? What's the spot?
This spot we've all been smoking weed at since we was kids. Now they do it.
And that you all, when you got down to the spot, you all did share a blunt that Trey smoked with you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yeah,
And that while you were down there smoking, Trey picked up a metal pipe.
yeah, he was hitting the tree with it.
He was beating the tree with it, is what you told the judge, right?
I don't know what I told him. It seemed like I didn't talk to him that long, but yeah, what you're saying is right, yeah.
Okay. And then you told Trey, next time you steal from me, I'm going to treat you like a man.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
And then Trey said something about, well, then you'll have a problem with his dad, with
No,
Terry.
he said then you and my dad will have a problem, yeah.
And you said you hit him and he went down. And when he went down, the metal bar was still in his hand. So you punched him to knock him down?
Yeah.
Is that how you knocked him down? Okay. And then the bar was still in his hand, but you stepped on his hand and took the bar out.
Yeah.
And then you hit him. And before you knew it, it was over.
After Josh confessed to the crime and also mentioned how he killed his stepson, Joshua Young was released from custody as he was found not guilty on all charges.
Verdict form number 1, murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Joshua Young not guilty under instruction number 1. Verdict form number 2, tampering with physical evidence. We, the jury, find the defendant Joshua Young not guilty under instruction number 2.
You might be thinking that it's over now, but the case took another turn in February 2014 when Josh changed his story and said that he only pleaded guilty to save his son. A judge soon dismissed his motion to toss the conviction. On the other hand, Joshua was living a life of crime as he was first arrested in 2014 for assaulting a witness who had testified against him. Other charges included stealing a car, drug possession, and assaulting his girlfriend. While in jail, he wrote a letter claiming that he had killed Trey with a baseball bat he brought with him. He also wrote in that letter that he was high and not in the right state of mind. He also claimed that if Trey had been a good brother, he would still be alive.
For one, I just didn't like him. He had a big mouth with no actions to back it up. But for two, he told on me one night when we got pulled over by the police, coming home from a house party. And I had some weed on me. He told on me about that, something petty.
Under the legal principle of double jeopardy, Young could not be tried again for the murder of Zwicker after already getting acquitted in 2013. Trey's father, Terry Zwicker, claimed that he had always suspected that Young was guilty of murder. Both Josh and Joshua are currently in prison, completing their sentences. However, the case is still unclear, and we do not know for sure who killed Trey. Were they both involved or plotted together, or was it only Josh as he claimed in his letter? It seems we may never truly know who the killer was.